What is going on YouTube? I'm Reed Science Nerd and this is my first video on YouTube. So it is known that anything that is big starts with humble beginnings. So let's start with how orbits work. So take a planet. Imagine this is a planet. Take an object, for example, take a satellite, an artificial satellite. Take a GPS satellite. It's orbiting, okay? So it's here. I'm going to switch hands. So it's falling down. But when the moment it is going to touch it, the earth curves away. So it again travels like here, and then curvature goes here, comes here. That's what happens. So each and every astronaut in the ISS, in each and every satellite in outer space, right now is experiencing the same amount of gravity that we face on Earth. But you know that they are in zero gravity, but that's false, because as I told, they are facing the same amount of gravitational force that we face on the Earth, slightly lower because of the distance. They are at a rate of constant fall. Okay, I'm going to use a real life example here. Do you know the amusement park ride? It's like a ship that rocks forward and backward. So, for example, take you're sitting here and the ship is going forward. You feel like you're pulled to the ground because you're actually pulled to the ground. When it comes up and then the moment it starts coming down, you start feeling weightless. That makes a lot of people nauseous, and including me. The weightlessness is because you're falling. That's what the astronauts experience every second of the day, and every month of the year, every day of the month, every day of the week. They experience it 24/7, 365 days of the year, all the time. So now let's look at the Voyagers. Recently NASA has made a press release that they have switched on the kind of thruster on the Voyager 1 spacecraft, and it successfully functioned after 37 years of dormant. It's after being 37 years, being dormant for 37 years. You see, not a lot of spacecrafts last for 40 years like the Voyagers did. The Voyagers, even though they were named 1 and 2 was launched first and 1 was launched later. 2 was on a mission to look at all the planets in the solar system except for Mercury because it's too close to the sun. And the Voyager 1's mission was to travel outside the solar system, and it's outside right now. It's in interstellar space. As defined by the International Astronomical Union, IAU, interstellar space is the gap between two stars and its solar wind. Solar wind. What is solar wind? Solar wind is the charged particles ejected by a star into space, and the maximum distance it covers is called the solar system of that. For example, our sun's solar wind extends way beyond Pluto, way beyond Oort cloud, for example, and it's I guess it's a light year, the distance. And Voyager 1 has just surpassed it. It's between the gaps of two solar winds, so that is interstellar space. And Voyager 1 is en route. Voyager 1 took a slower route and traveled to all the planets. Well, Voyager 1, it just traveled to Saturn, tried to look at Titan, and then boom, it just went fast as it could out of the solar system. Well, okay, see, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune wasn't there in order. Voyager 2 went like this, Voyager 1 went like this. That's the difference. Voyager 1 went a faster route but didn't look at any of the outer planets. Voyager 2 went a slower route but was the only planet to visit Uranus and Neptune. Okay, there's my recent hypothesis of Cassini was destroyed. Why? Cassini, a spacecraft that I loved, and I cried the day it was destroyed. I literally sat and cried for hours and hours because I thought it was my friend, and I think I'm attached to it because the moment it locked into the orbit of Saturn, I was born. So it must mean that I'm related to it. So I sat and cried for a long time. The reason for why it is destroyed, because when a spacecraft is built, for Cassini is built, the builders, they go through a vacuum cleaner, not the vacuum cleaner you think, but it's a place where pressurized air is pushed all over you to remove all the germs on living that's on your dress and on your face and on your hair and all that. So to make the probe not be contaminated from the debris here. So Sorry, guys, someone is knocking at the door. So microbes can live in space. So however well you get clean, there is going to be a single microbe that still is on you. So when the probe is getting built, imagine you're turning a screw. The microbe is on your hand. It like falls onto the spacecraft. So no matter if you get it cleaned 99.9%, there's the 0.01% that still goes into space from the probe, and that's 0.01% of microbes on the 1 by 100 percentage, and 50% of that will survive in space because microbes, they are extremely strong. A lot of it's believed life came in the form of comets to the earth. That's how rain came, that's how life formed. So if life can live in the harsh conditions of outer space, it can definitely live on a space probe, which is again destined to go to outer space. So Saturn's moon Enceladus is a very, very interesting place indeed. It is made of water ice, and it shoots up steam every now and then, which means it inside is water, and that's hot, because then how will it become steam? Saturn's gravitational force and magnetic force energize Enceladus, leading it to getting hotter and hotter. So the water inside, there's a subsurface ocean in Enceladus, which may have the qualities necessary for life. It may water. That's how we all evolved. We were under the sea, smaller than a human has width, and now we're so big that we can go to outer space, send a spacecraft to the distance between stars, and calculate the light years and change the atomic structure. And recently, at the time of posting this video, scientists have used DNA to recreate the Mona Lisa in a microscopic form. So we can do that. But once we were smaller than, you could have the sea and the ocean. So each and every one of the human beings living on Earth is related in some way, because there was only one man and one woman at the start, at the moment humans began. So from that, now there is more than 8 billion human beings. So if Cassini was to crash into Enceladus, if the subsurface ocean layer was to be exposed to space, the living organisms there could die. That didn't happen, and like the space probe's RTG, it was like sticking out like an antenna. This went and poked Enceladus and went inside the water. The radioactivity could also destroy life. And if none of that happened, and then the microbes just fell into Enceladus, into a hole, it could possibly contaminate the whole moon. It could be like aliens entering Earth. It would be the same thing, but for them. So to avoid that, each and every spacecraft that's orbiting a planet is destroyed on its own. Cassini was losing fuel, altitude control fuel, which means if it was not destroyed, it is soon going to lose control, and it's going to uncontrollably either go into Saturn, crash into any moon, or just get out of orbit. So I guess let's talk about something else. Let's talk about the space shuttle. Let's talk about specifically the space mission STS-107. Why is it important? It was this. Wait, before that, we'll talk about STS-51F. Why is it important? Out of the 135 missions designated for the space shuttles, there have been 2 failures, and both of the shuttles were destroyed with all 7 crew. The first one happened in 1986, January 26. So Jan 26, 1986, the morning was really cold. Space Shuttle Challenger was to be launched that day. The crew was especially special because it had a teacher in it. First time a teacher is going to outer space to research on biology. As the day was really cold, the Space Shuttle has rocket boosters because the main engines are not powerful enough to escape the Earth's gravity. The boosters, they have O-ring seals made of rubber which expand on heat to seal the whole spacecraft. Just because the morning that day was really cold, the seals didn't expand enough. But NASA didn't check. They wanted to launch the spacecraft. So they launched it, and after they launched it, they found out that, and they launched it. It went well. The 73rd second after launch, there was a huge cloud. The spacecraft the NASA ground engineers lost contact, both in radio and visual contact, with the space shuttle. And then you see pieces flying off from the event? Well, that is because the O-ring seal allowed the fire which is coming out of the nozzles to leak into the fuel tank. If you notice the space shuttle, it's a fuel tank, and next beside it, the boosters are the boosters are bolted onto the external fuel tanks. So the released heat, it melted the fuel tank. First of all, it melted the bolts to which the booster was bolted on. So the booster was now hanging loose. And then that was 60 seconds after launch. 70th second, what happened is that after that it was heating the fuel tank and it was melting the outer layer. At the 70th second, 70 seconds after launch, the outer covering of the tank was melted, and now the inner liquid hydrogen tank was about to be melted. If you don't know, the space shuttle's tank consisted of liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. Hydrogen is the fuel. Liquid oxygen is because in space there's no oxygen, so spacecrafts need to have oxygen within them to ignite fire. So it started to melt the outer liquid hydrogen tank. So 72nd second, what happened is that the hydrogen fuel tank's outer layer was melted, so the hydrogen plus liquid hydrogen, which is pressurized, came out flying. The booster was like this, it was hanging loose, right? The pressure pushed this, and in turn this top layer went and hit the liquid oxygen tank and it broke it. So liquid oxygen fell out, liquid hydrogen fell out, they both combined. If you don't know, hydrogen and oxygen when combined, they have a huge explosion, and there was a huge explosion. The Challenger's structural integrity was not enough to withstand the explosion. So what happened is that the whole spacecraft disintegrated and broke up into parts. Well, I have to go again. So that's how Challenger was destroyed. NASA, they stopped all the launches of space shuttle, and that in turn delayed the launch of Hubble Space Telescope, which we'll speak about in the later video. And they grounded the whole fleet until 1987, and they got the courage to launch another spacecraft again, and after that they made sure that the O-ring seal was fully seated before launch. Now on to Columbia, the first ever space shuttle built and heaviest one. Endeavour, the latest space shuttle, was the lightest one. Columbia was the heaviest one, and it didn't have a docking port, so it couldn't dock with any space station. Columbia remained operational till 2003. January 16, there was a crew. STS-107 was planned, was launched. It had Kalpana Chawla on it. I'm emphasizing that because I'm an Indian and Kalpana Chawla is an Indian. So they launched the spacecraft with because Columbia is a really old spacecraft, and now NASA was planning on building the ISS. They just launched Columbia to conduct researches in space. So for that, they don't want to take out money from their budget allocated to them by the US government. So what is it? Like spacecraft fuel tanks. The first two missions, STS-1 and 2 had white fuel tanks, but 3 had orange fuel tanks, because the fuel tank is orange, but it was painted white to make sure everything was white. But as it added more weight, the spacecraft was slower. So they took off the paint. It was slightly faster, and in space, speed is everything. So what they did is they make revisions of the fuel tank every now and then. A revision was made after Challenger was destroyed. They had a thicker layer outside both the fuel tanks and a better joint between the SRBs, solid rocket boosters, and the fuel tank. So for this mission, they don't want to spend all the budget they got. So what they did is they used an inferior fuel tank, an older revision of a fuel tank, which is kept in storage for about 5 years for this mission. All went well. They were in space for 1 week. Everything was well. They were asked to re-enter the Earth. The space shuttle always enters at an angle like this. The atmosphere is like this. They enter like this. So because of excessive drag, friction, the spacecraft heats up a lot. That's why the underside of the space shuttle is black. The black tiles, the silica tiles, they're made black to withstand temperatures of more than 2000 degrees Celsius. The white parts are made to withstand 1500 degrees Celsius. And the leading edge of the wings, which are slightly grey in color, they are made to withstand 6000 degrees Celsius. And they could withstand more, but they don't want to push it to the limits, because the leading edge of the wings received the most heat. So during re-entry, all went fine until the last 10 minutes or so. The space shuttle was above Texas. The cameras monitoring it found out that there was pieces of the craft coming out. They thought it was paint and just left it. Right over Texas on February 1st, 2003, the spacecraft was destroyed. It broke up into pieces. Nothing came back. They sent a fleet to go and recover the flight box data recorder. Actually, fun fact, the Special Columbia was the only spacecraft to have a flight data recorder. That was included in the first and second prize because they wanted to know how the spacecraft performs. So they have a flight data box recorder like they have on aeroplanes. So it was this box that provided the vital information on the crash. It said the leading of in the data recorded by it during re-entry, the temperature inside the wing was too hot. It was hotter than it should be. It was reaching 6,000 degrees Celsius. Oh my God, that's the temperature of the sun. 2,500 degrees Celsius. No, it's 2,500 degrees Celsius. It should not. The temperature should be about 500 or 600 degrees Celsius. Why? They reviewed the launch footage. To their horror, they found out that the inferior fuel tank, which has been stored for 5 years, it was the joints between the liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen tanks were made of foam. During launch, the foam ejected and went and hit the space shuttle. It's foam, right? No. The space shuttle is moving at a speed which is escaping the Earth's gravity. I don't know the exact number, but still, it's really high. So, even if I throw a paper at you at light speed, you're going to die because of that. So, more speed equals more force and more you get hurt. So, foam block hit the space shuttle at a really high speed, which broke a tile at the leading edge of the wing. They were not sold on this though, so they conducted experiments using Endeavour's tiles, and they hit it like this and at straight angles. It didn't break. The tile was like this, and they hit it like this. It broke. So they concluded that during re-entry, superheated gases went inside the leading edge of the hole in the leading edge, melted the wing. Because of instability, the spacecraft rolled over and kept on rolling due to the heat, the rolling over, all the forces continuing to break up the spacecraft. A lot of lives were lost, 7 lives. So out of 135 missions, there has been 134 successful launches and 134 successful re-entries. And 14 members were lost. So the space shuttle has a really high success rate, and it was finally retired in 2011 March, and the last flight was made by Atlantis. And due to budget cuts, no more space shuttle missions were launched. And right now, NASA has no operational spacecraft which has the capability to take man to moon or man to anywhere. But they are proposing another STS, Space Transportation System method, where they're going to reuse the main engine. But the space shuttle had 3, this is going to have 4, and then they're going to reuse the solid rocket boosters, but the space shuttle had 2, it's going to have 4. So they're going to use the Orion module, which meant that this could travel to the moon, Mars, and much beyond. The only reason the space shuttle was grounded, it was because of lack of research, when the space shuttle couldn't take off after landing. So if it was to land on the moon, they marooned. Get it? The maroon movie. Bad jokes. Now let's talk about something else. I want to make the video as big as possible. Let's talk about the moonwalks. There is a huge community in YouTube, and mind it when I say huge, I literally mean huge community in YouTube which believes that the moon landings are fake. The main reason to this is because of 2001: A Space Odyssey. It was a film made by Stanley Kubrick, and it was made in 1968, 1 year prior to the moon landings. The film had a moon sequence in which a monolith, an alien was found on the moon, so they were going to investigate it. The moon scenes looked so authentic, and when they compared it to the moon landing footage, it was almost the same, without all the snazzy borders, with the same scope. That they believed that NASA had hired Stanley Kubrick to make a film to record a stunt, publicity stunt, because they thought that NASA didn't have the power to go to the moon because it is just too much. Well, and a lot of other claims, the lines which came in the videos were supposed to be wires because they tried to simulate moon gravity in Earth. This is not. It's bad processing because it's processed in the moon. Signal technology, radio wave transmitting technology was not as advanced as it is today in 1969. So there was a significant loss of data. So the rendering of the videos were really low quality, and all the TV news channels were forced to record it off a monitor. So it was even lower. The quality of it was even degraded. That's why there were lines. Secondly, the fact that there's no stars. Okay, in the moon, they thought that because it's really hard to depict stars in realistic environments, and if any stargazer looked at it, they would easily identify that it's a hoax and tell that. So that's why there's no stars in any moon photograph. Well, I'm here to correct it. Do you see stars during the daytime in Earth? Does that mean that we're all on a huge stage and we're all actors? No. The moon, how it shines light on us. It doesn't have its own light. It reflects the sun's light, which means sun's light, the surface of the moon is where they're standing. So the light reflected off the surface is so much that it blinds the stars. Simple. Another reason, background's the same. Well, the moon is small. So, and the moon landings happen only at one side of the moon, one face of the moon, because the moon is tidally locked to the earth. So, as the moon is small, the distances, even if distances are huge, they don't appear as huge as on Earth. So, even if Apollo 11 landed 5 kilometers from the mountain and Apollo 17 landed 27 kilometers from the same mountain, it's going to look the same because of lack of atmosphere, lack of buildings, lack of disruption of view field. It's going to appear the same. So that's the moon hoax debunked. Okay, so I'm going to explain why why I'm so sure that it is not a movie. Well, if they had to create an environment create a lunar landing module, create a spacesuit, create all the effects, special effects needed, and create all the props, it's going to be more. So simply put, it's going to be harder to make a hoax other than send people to the moon because of the budget involved. The things that should go right. In real events, it's going to look real because it's real. But if you want to make something look really real, you got to spend more money than to make it really happen. So if I want to punch the camera, I couldn't punch the camera. But if I wanted to make me look like I punched the camera, I could do this, and then in editing I could zoom in the footage. That's more work. If I use Adobe Premiere Pro, which costs a lot, it could put a hole in your wallet. It's going to cost me a lot rather than punching the camera. So if I punch the camera, the most will happen, the camera will fall down and break. And Adobe Premiere costs more than a camera. So actually this video is not edited on an Adobe Premiere because this is my first video. Adobe Premiere is too expensive. I use an open source editor. Why am I going to that? I'll be in a tech channel. So let's look at the formation of the solar system. Well, it is believed that Jupiter came into the solar system during the early stages. Why? It is important. There was excess debris as people call it, in space when the solar system was forming. If that would happen, Mars would have been excessively big, Earth would have been so huge that it would not be able to support life, and Earth would be going closer to the moon because as it's bigger, its mass will increase and speed will not increase that much, so it's going to be going closer to the sun. When Jupiter came in, it sucked all the debris into itself, that's why there's 63 moons, and it took some of the material from Mars, Earth, Venus and Mercury. So if the Jupiter didn't come in to the solar system, in the solar system, the Earth would not support life. So Jupiter is named Jupiter because it's the god of gods, Zeus. Greek mythology. It's the god of gods. If Zeus was not there, we would not be there. If Jupiter was not there, we would not be here. Okay, let's look at Uranus. Uranus, that's a really bad joke. Okay. Uranus is tilted on its side. I should stop laughing. Uranus is tilted on its side. Why? Early in its life, it must have had some impact. Uranus was like this, with its rings like this. But some body should have come and hit it like this, which tilted it like this. Like this. That's what happened. So its equators as poles, and poles are the equators. So Uranus is quite a different. Actually, I think Uranus is the most interesting body in the solar system ever, because it is Miranda, a moon which is surface geometry that is totally different to what you would think. it looks as if it has been torn to pieces and then put back together. It has so many weird formations. There's a huge mountain, half a mountain, and then the next side will be like down, like a plane. That's radical. Let's okay, so thanks for watching, guys. That's enough for this video, and see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.